I'm currently 8 weeks into my pregnancy. I had gone for a routine pap smear and STD screening. A few days later, I tested positive for gonorrhea. I had never cheated on my husband and never expected that he cheated on me. When I confronted him with the test results, he seemed genuinely shocked and insisted there had to be a mix-up with the results. He swore up and down that he had been faithful and there was no way that it could be true. I insisted that he get tested. He agreed to do it, and as the days passed, he admitted that he had met a woman online and had cuddles with her. He claimed it was a mistake and he couldn't answer why he did it. He said the woman meant doing to him, and it was a one-time thing. I'm disgusted and feel betrayed knowing that he put me at such risk. Our pregnancy was planned, so we were actively trying before I got pregnant, and he had no regard for that. The thought of continuing the pregnancy while dealing with this betrayal is overwhelming. I'm considered having an uninstallation because the idea of bringing a child in the mix is crazy to me. I don't think I can ever forgive him. I feel like crap for thinking of having an uninstallation. I just can't see myself continuing this marriage and having a baby with him. Relevant comments from Op. I'm already on the verge of losing my mind just from knowing he had unprotected cuddles with a random woman, risking my life and our unborn baby. I would rather not dig into what he's been up to online, as I think that would cause even more pain for me. Commenter. Does the STD risk the health of the baby? I think many of them do. With that in mind, I would end the pregnancy unless you are in your late 30s or 40s and really think this is your one shot at a child and it's your greatest dream, to the extent of doing it single. Definitely terminate the marriage. He is a slimeball. OP. It was caught early and I was treated. Me and baby are safe. Update 1. Finally decided to find out the truth about his affair. I figured out my husband's email password and discovered that he's been on dating sites for months. I also found a woman's name and email address from hotel bookings he forwarded to her. I Googled her information, found out where she worked, and called her. When she picked up, I got scared and hung up, but she called back, and we had a long conversation. She said that she didn't know he was married and kept apologizing. She told me that if my husband and I have been intimate in the past few weeks, I should get tested because he gave her an STD. I was shocked because I thought she had given it to him. She said he gaslighted her, making it seem like she got it from someone else. I told her he did the same to me. I didn't mention that I'm pregnant. She said she cut him off and is considering suing him over it. They met on Tinder and had been seeing each other for 6 months. Although I initially thought she should have known he was married, but I believe her because my husband isn't on social media. He has an Insta account but doesn't post pictures. She confirmed that they had cuddles multiple times, contradicting his claim that it was a one-time thing. She said they spent time in hotels until she felt comfortable inviting him to her apartment. We came to the conclusion that she was just one of the women he was involved with because he gave both of us an STD. Hearing all this made me sick, knowing there are other women. I feel stupid for not realizing what was going on and probably wouldn't have found out if it wasn't for the STD results. My husband doesn't know what I've discovered or that I've spoken to her. This is incredibly tough. I'm heartbroken and conflicted about whether I should schedule an abortion, but finding this out is pushing me towards that decision. Relevant comments. Commenter. It's heartbreaking that you have to make this choice at all. Until recently, you thought your marriage was intact and this pregnancy was wanted. But I'd really consider whether you want to be tied to this man for the rest of your life and have to co-parent with someone who was this cavalier with your health and well-being. OP. I wish I didn't have to make this tough decision. I don't want to co-parent with him, but at the same time, I feel so bad about having an uninstallation. My fear is that it might be a big regret that I won't be able to get over. It's so frustrating because each decision is heartbreaking either way. Commenter. How did she not suspect he was married? Even though she had never been to his house or met his important friends and family in 6 months. Remember, the baby is innocent and half of you. OP. She's actually met one of his close friends who's also married, which might mean that his friend is also having an affair. I don't know for sure, but if his friend is okay with meeting my husband's AP, my guess is he too has an AP. I'm pretty sure his wife, who is my friend, doesn't know about this. Commenter. The most important gift you give your child is an amazing father. It sounds like you have a horrible narcissist on your hands. If you go through with this pregnancy, he will be in your life for the rest of your life and play horrible mind games on you and your child. Going through pregnancy is one of the most vulnerable experiences of your life. When you're pregnant, you risk injury or death. Imagine if something happened to you and your newborn baby was handed to this monster as the sole caretaker of an innocent life. Be thankful you have clarity now, while you still have time to make decisions and truly think of your future. You can't trust anything he says about improving. He's capable and willing to lie without remorse. If he feels badly, it's just that he feels badly for getting caught, not for cheating. OP. If I decide to go through with this pregnancy, I would want nothing to do with him and would prefer that he not be part of this experience or the child's life. I know that's selfish to say, and it's also impossible because he will make our lives hell. Update 2. I'm almost 10 weeks pregnant. I've scheduled an uninstallation and I'm feeling so guilty about it. My mind keeps changing. Should I have my baby? I'm terrified that I'll regret it and feel terrible for terminating an innocent life. I'm also anxious about the possibility of never being able to get pregnant again. But then I think, maybe I'm doing the right thing. The thought of dealing with this man for the next 18 years is overwhelming. We'd still be in each other's lives because we'd share a child. I'm just all over the place, and I feel sick having to make this decision. We haven't spoken in weeks. He doesn't know I'm planning an uninstallation. Not sure if I'm doing the right thing by not letting him know about it. I filed for divorce, and it feels like I'm dealing with 2 major losses at once. I'm so stressed and unsure how I'll survive this. If I have the uninstallation, I can move on with my life peacefully, cut all ties, avoid custody battles, never having to see or hear from him again, no longer dealing with his lies and deceit. If I keep the baby, this list is from someone in my comments. Thank you. Him wanting to be there during your pregnancy. Him wanting to make decisions about your baby, from the name to anything else you can think of. His family and their opinions. Him wanting to be there during the birth. Him and his family trying to gaslight your child into believing you're a bad person and daddy is perfect. Him being your child's role model. Having to ask for his permission to make decisions like traveling or where you live. Your child having a stepmom and maybe step-siblings who might not treat him well. Your child meeting multiple girlfriends. You being forced to let him take care of the child. He will be free to have a parenting style completely different than yours. And if he's immature and petty, he might do things the opposite way you like them to piss you off. Dealing with his emotional/mental/financial issues. Never knowing whether he's telling the truth or lying about all kinds of things. Did he feed the baby? Did he take care of his cold the way you told him to? Why did the child get hurt? Could you trust him to be sincere? Could you trust him to be honest if he makes a mistake that hurts your child, even if coming clean would help the child? Or will he hide it and lie the way he did with his cheating? Don't tell mommy we did this/you saw this/I told you this/you ate this. Him being nosy about your personal life, including when you start dating or get into a relationship or marry. I'm his father. I have a right to know who's the guy he's gonna live with and crap like that. You can be sure your romantic life would suffer if he behaves that way. Not many good men want to get involved in that kind of situations. Him using the kid to manipulate you. Relevant comments. Commenter. Every single point you have made is absolutely valid. He will use the child against you. He might even think that having the baby is his way back to you. You'll need help or feel differently once the baby is here. Anything is possible. OP. He might try to use the baby as a way to get me back, and I'm not sure if I'd be strong enough to resist, especially with all the hormones from being pregnant. But taking him back is not an option for me. There's no way we can move forward from this. I don't trust him anymore, and what he did to me is unforgivable. Commenter. Think of it this way. The person who is supposed to defend and protect you is so selfish that he gave you and possibly your baby an STD just to satisfy a passing urge. This is who he is. This would be the person making decisions on how to raise the baby. OP. He's not someone I trust to make decisions on raising our baby. Update 3. I had an uninstallation yesterday, and I'm not sure how to feel. It was a difficult decision, but I believed it was the right one. There was no way I could keep the baby under these circumstances. Now, I just feel numb. I haven't told him, and we haven't spoken since I left him after discovering he gave me an STD. I know that when he finds out, he'll likely try to paint me as the worst person. I'm not sure if he deserves to know the truth, or should I just say I had a miscarriage? Update 4. I told him it was a miscarriage. I know, it feels like another lie in this mess of a situation, but I just couldn't handle telling him the truth. The thought of seeing his reaction, whether it was fake sympathy, anger, or even relief, made my stomach turn. So, I chose the path that let me slip out of his grasp a little easier. I just wanted it to be over. He's already done enough damage to me, and I couldn't stomach giving him another reason to try to manipulate me. He was surprisingly calm when I told him, which made me feel even more justified in my decision. He said he was sorry for everything, that he'd been reflecting a lot, and wanted to make things right between us. He even started talking about how we could try again. Once things settled down, try again? After everything he's done? It felt like he was in a completely different reality. I couldn't even respond. I just sat there, staring at him like he was a stranger because, honestly, that's exactly what he is now. Now that the uninstallation is behind me, I feel empty. Not just because of the pregnancy, but because I feel like I've lost everything I thought my life was going to be. The dream of this perfect family, the excitement of having a child, the belief that I could trust the person I loved. It's all gone, and I'm not sure how to rebuild from here. I've started the divorce process officially, but every time I get a call from my lawyer, it's like ripping off a fresh bandage. He's already tried to contact me more than once, asking if we can talk things out and begging me to reconsider. The nerve of this man who shattered my trust and endangered my life thinking we can just talk our way back to normal. It's infuriating. The woman he cheated with emailed me a few days ago. She wanted to check in and make sure I was okay. At first, I didn't want to reply, but then I realized she's probably going through her own version of hell because of him too. So, I did. We're not exactly friends, but we share a common experience now, and honestly, that's more support than I'm getting from anyone else. We've been exchanging messages about what we're both going through, and it's been oddly comforting. At least she gets it. Now, I'm in this weird limbo where I don't know what's next. My life feels like it's been flipped upside down, and I'm just trying to find my footing. I've moved out of our place and into a small apartment, and every night I lie awake, wondering if I made the right choice. Wondering if I'll ever be able to move on from this, or if this betrayal will follow me forever. Sometimes I think about telling him the truth about the uninstallation, about how much he hurt me, about how I'll never forgive him. But then I realize that would give him too much power over my healing process. He doesn't deserve to know my pain, especially after everything he's put me through. Update 5. It's been a few weeks since I last updated, and things have taken a turn, though I can't say if it's for better or worse yet. So, I decided to tell him the truth. Not because I wanted to, but because it felt like he was getting too comfortable with the idea that we could just move on. He kept texting, kept calling, leaving voicemails about how we could start over, how we could heal together, and how this was just a bump in the road. It was like he was living in some delusional fantasy where everything would be forgiven and forgotten. I couldn't take it anymore. I told him the whole truth, right down to the moment I walked into the clinic and how I felt afterward. I didn't sugarcoat it. I wanted him to know exactly how much he destroyed, how much of our future was gone because of his selfishness. And you know what? His reaction was just as I feared. It was all about him. He started crying, saying how he couldn't believe I took that decision away from him. He kept talking about how he wanted to be a father, how he was ready to change, and how I robbed him of that chance. Not once did he acknowledge that he was the reason I even had to make that choice. It was like he forgot the part where he cheated, lied, and put my health at risk. In that moment, I realized he would never really understand. He was always going to be the victim in his own mind. After I told him, I blocked him on everything. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. His texts, his calls, his endless apologies, they were just poison, slowly eating away at whatever little strength I had left. I needed space, and I needed to finally start healing without his voice in my head. But, of course, it didn't end there. A few days later, his mom called me. She'd always been sweet, a little overbearing, but sweet. I wasn't expecting her to know so soon, but apparently, he ran straight to her after I told him. She wasn't angry, surprisingly. Instead, she sounded desperate. She begged me to reconsider the divorce, saying he was broken without me, that he was truly sorry and needed help. She even threw in some guilt about how he's been talking to a therapist and is really trying to get better. It was like she was trying to fix everything with her words, like somehow I could just forget what happened and start over with a clean slate. I told her as calmly as I could that it was over, that I couldn't be with someone who could betray me like that. She didn't argue much after that, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. That stuck with me. And as if things couldn't get any more complicated, the woman he cheated with, let's call her Sarah, reached out again. This time, it wasn't just a check-in. She wanted to meet up, face to face. I hesitated at first, but honestly, I was curious. I wanted to see the person who had unknowingly been in this mess with me, who had been deceived just as much as I had. We met at a coffee shop. It was weird at first, seeing her in person, knowing what we both shared. She looked as exhausted as I felt. We talked for hours about everything. She told me how he'd lied to her, too, how he'd made promises about their future together. She even showed me some of the messages he sent her after I found out about the affair. He'd been trying to get back with her, too, saying he'd left me and that they could finally be together. The lies just kept piling up. It was cathartic in a way, talking to her. It made me feel less alone in this mess. By the end of our conversation, we weren't exactly friends, but we were no longer just two strangers tied together by his betrayal. She's decided to sue him over the STD, and honestly, I don't blame her. I told her I'd be willing to testify if she needed me to. So now, I'm just trying to move forward. I'm still in therapy, still sorting through the emotional wreckage. Some days are better than others. Sometimes, I wake up and feel a strange sense of relief, like a weight has been lifted now that he's out of my life. Other days, I feel this deep, aching sadness for what could have been. For the baby I never got to meet. For the life I thought I was going to have. I don't know what's next. I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm trying to rebuild, trying to figure out who I am now that my entire world has shifted. I don't have all the answers, and maybe I never will. But I do know one thing. I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. And somehow, I'm going to get through this. As for him, he's still trying. His mom sent me flowers last week with a note that said something like, "He'll always love you." I threw them in the trash without a second thought. He's not part of my story anymore. This is my life, and I'm finally taking it back. Update 6. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. Everything came crashing down in a way I never could have predicted. I thought I had hit rock bottom, but apparently, I was wrong. There was still more to fall. It all started when I got a call from my soon-to-be ex-husband's best friend's wife. Let's call her Jessica. She's the one who I mentioned might not know about her husband's possible affair, and I honestly didn't expect to hear from her, especially since I've been distancing myself from everyone connected to him. But when she called, her voice was shaky. She said she needed to talk to me in person, that it was urgent. I hesitated, but something in her voice told me this wasn't just about her marriage, it was about something bigger. We met at a park, far away from prying eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The moment we sat down, she just broke down, sobbing into her hands. I had never seen her like that. She was always the strong, put-together type. It took her a while to compose herself, but when she finally started talking, the words tumbled out of her like she'd been holding them in for too long. Turns out, my ex-husband and her husband were in this mess together, more deeply than I ever imagined. Jessica had found out that they'd been covering for each other's affairs for years. Years. They had some kind of twisted pact where they'd lie for one another, provide alibis, even help each other set up fake business trips to meet with their various women. She had stumbled upon a stash of texts and emails on her husband's phone discussing details about their encounters, how they laughed about deceiving their wives, how they compared notes like it was some kind of sick game. I felt like I was going to throw up. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Not only had my husband betrayed me, but so had the people I considered friends. People who sat at our table, shared our lives, pretended to care. It was like finding out your entire life was a lie. And the worst part? Jessica revealed that there were more women. Many more. Some of them didn't even know my husband was married. He'd been living a double life, no, a triple life, and I had been none the wiser. But that wasn't the end of it. Jessica had hired a private investigator. She wanted to gather evidence for her divorce, and what they found. I can barely wrap my head around it. My husband, in his infinite arrogance, had been reckless. One of the women he was involved with, someone much younger, was pregnant. She had no idea who he really was, just like the others. And now, she was carrying his child, thinking she was building a future with him. When I heard this, I felt something inside me snap. I thought the uninstallation had been my way of severing ties with him. But here he was, creating new ones, deeper ones, with someone else. It felt like the ultimate betrayal. Like the universe was laughing in my face, showing me just how little I ever knew about the man I married. I confronted him. I don't know why. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I just wanted to see the look on his face when he realized the game was up. He tried to deny it at first, tried to act like Jessica and I were overreacting, that it wasn't what it seemed. But when I showed him the proof, the photos, the messages, the undeniable truth, he just crumbled. He didn't even try to fight it. He just sat there, staring at the floor like a broken man. And for the first time, I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anything. I left him there, drowning in his lies. I blocked him on everything, told my lawyer to push the divorce through as quickly as possible. I'm done. There's nothing left to say. As for Jessica, she's filing for divorce too. We've become each other's lifeline in all this chaos, leaning on each other in ways we never expected. There's some solace in that, I guess. We both lost our husbands, but we found our strength. But here's the kicker. A few days ago, I got a message from the younger woman, the one who's pregnant. She'd found out the truth, who he really was, that he was married, that he'd been lying to her from the start. She didn't know what to do, and for some reason, she reached out to me. Maybe she thought I'd understand, or maybe she just needed someone to talk to who wasn't connected to his web of lies. We talked for hours. I told her everything. She was devastated, of course, but also determined. She said she's going to keep the baby, but wants nothing to do with him. She's planning to move away, start fresh, and raise the child on her own. I told her I respected her decision. I don't know what I would have done in her shoes, but I admire her strength.